There's a reason you keep ending up in the same situation, even when everything looks different. New job, same anxiety. New relationship, same fear. New goal, same doubt. You changed the environment, but the results stayed the same. And you're starting to think you're cursed, like success just ain't in your DNA. But I'm here to tell you something nobody else is saying. You're not broken, you're just unhealed. And when you don't process your pain, it turns into a pattern. A loop, a cycle you can't break because the root never got pulled. Some of you are out here trying to build a future with wounds from the past still bleeding. You're applying effort, you're putting in the hours, you're doing everything you're supposed to, but underneath all of it is pain that's been ignored for so long it's learned how to talk in your voice. It's learned how to dress itself up as ambition. It's hiding behind your grind, your goals, your overthinking. You're not lazy. You're not inconsistent. You're just emotionally exhausted from carrying years of unprocessed pain while pretending you're okay. You've built routines around survival, not success. You wake up every day not to chase a dream, but to outrun a memory. You stay busy not because you love the hustle, but because silence reminds you of what you never healed from. Your discipline is really distraction. Your work ethic is really avoidance. That's why the results don't stick. That's why the motivation fades fast. That's why you get close to breakthrough but never really break through. Because the system in your mind is still programmed by wounds you never addressed. You were hurt and you never processed it. You were abandoned and you never unpacked it. You were rejected and you never healed it. So now you carry it everywhere you go, into your business, into your relationships, into your dreams, and then you wonder why you keep getting the same outcomes. It's because pain unprocessed becomes a personality trait. And that trait starts driving, it starts choosing, it starts building a version of your life that keeps you safe but stuck. You think you're protecting yourself, but what you're really doing is preventing yourself. You're avoiding disappointment by staying small. You're avoiding betrayal by isolating. You're avoiding risk by playing it safe. But here's the problem. The life you say you want, the freedom, the abundance, the love, it lives on the other side of healing. And healing is uncomfortable. Healing is disruptive. It's messy. It makes you relive the things you've worked your whole life to forget. But healing is also the only way you stop repeating the same cycle and start living a new story. And let's get something straight. Healing ain't cute. It ain't soft. It ain't some self-care Sunday with candles and quotes. Healing is raw. Healing is heavy. Healing is waking up in the middle of the night crying over stuff you thought you buried. It's looking in the mirror and admitting you've been wearing strength like a costume. It's choosing to face what broke you instead of hiding behind your schedule, your smile, your grind. You keep thinking something's wrong with you. You keep asking why you can't stay consistent, why you keep quitting on yourself, why everything feels harder than it should. It's because your pain has been the boss this whole time. Your decisions have been filtered through trauma. Your confidence has been leaking through cracks you refuse to seal. You're tired because you've been bleeding energy into places you didn't even know were still open. You've been trained to believe that success comes from pushing harder, doing more, sleeping less. But real success, real, sustainable, fulfilling success starts when you get honest about what hurt you and you stop letting it own you. When you stop numbing and start naming. When you stop burying and start building from truth. And truth starts with one uncomfortable question. What pain am I still carrying that I never healed from? Maybe it was that parent that wasn't there. Maybe it was the betrayal that taught you not to trust. Maybe it was the failure that shattered your self-worth. Maybe it was being told you weren't enough so many times you started believing it. That pain, it didn't just hurt you, it shaped you. And if you never stop to heal it, it will keep shaping everything you do. You can't outrun it. You can't outperform it. You have to sit with it, listen to it, learn from it, and then release it. Because as long as you carry it in silence, it controls you in secret. As long as it stays hidden, it stays powerful. But the moment you bring it into the light, it starts to lose its grip. It starts to loosen. It starts to let go, and so do you. That's when patterns break. That's when peace shows up. That's when clarity returns. That's when your grind starts flowing instead of forcing. That's when your goals start sticking instead of slipping. That's when you finally stop fighting yourself long enough to become who you were always meant to be. Some of you are grinding harder than ever, pushing yourself day in and day out, but you're still empty. You're out here doing 60-hour days, waking up before the sun, staying up after the world goes to sleep. You've got your planner filled, your to-do list never ends, and everybody's clapping for you like you've made it. But deep down, you still feel like something's missing. You're accomplishing things, but you're not fulfilled. You're getting wins, but they don't stick. And here's why your work ethic isn't being driven by purpose. It's being driven by pain. You're not chasing greatness, you're running from wounds. You're not trying to succeed, you're trying to silence something. Every time you hit a new milestone, there's a voice in the back of your mind saying, "See, I'm not worthless." Every late night you put in isn't about discipline, it's about trying to prove to somebody who walked out on you that you were always enough. You're working yourself to the bone, but it's not from vision, it's from validation. You've mastered the grind, but you never address the grief. You're excellent at execution, but you're lost in identity. You're a beast at strategy, but you're broken inside, and nobody sees it because your results look amazing. They see the income, the physique, the followers, the leadership. They see the outcome, but they don't see the origin. They don't see that 10-year-old kid who was told they weren't good enough. They don't see the teenager that was abandoned. They don't see the silence you were forced to grow in. They don't see that your excellence is actually a form of escape. And I know what you're thinking, what's wrong with that? If pain pushed me here, at least it worked right. Wrong, because pain-driven progress always burns you out. You can achieve from pain, but you can't sustain from it. Eventually, the energy source runs dry, and when it does, you're left alone with yourself. And when you've never healed, being alone with yourself feels like a punishment. That's why some of you are terrified of slowing down, because you know the moment the noise stops, the pain will speak. The silence will expose the wound, and you don't know what to do with that because all you've ever known is motion. You're trying to outrun something that can only be undone through healing. That's why no matter how far you go, it feels like you're still in the same place. That's why you don't celebrate your wins, because they don't feel real. Because you didn't work from wholeness, you worked from fear. You built your grind on top of an identity that was shattered, and now you're trying to hold it together with success. But success doesn't fix brokenness, it hides it. You've got to ask yourself a hard question. What's really fueling me? What's really behind all this hustle? Is it vision or is it a void? Because if you don't get clear on the difference, you'll keep building skyscrapers on unstable ground. You'll keep expanding your brand while ignoring your soul. You'll keep showing the world a version of you that looks strong, while the real you is struggling just to breathe. You've got to go deeper. You've got to stop grinding long enough to check where that fuel is coming from. You've got to pull back the layers and say, wait, am I working hard because I'm inspired or because I'm insecure? Am I pushing for my future or am I running from my past? Because the moment you can admit that the wound is still driving, that's the moment you get your power back. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're not too far gone. But you're tired because you've been using pain as your only motivation. You've been sprinting on fumes, trying to convince yourself you're healed because you're productive. But healing isn't measured by how full your calendar is. It's measured by how free your heart is. You've learned how to succeed through suffering. Now it's time to learn how to thrive through healing. And don't confuse slowing down with weakness. It takes real strength to face what broke you. It takes courage to admit that all this progress has been masking a deeper issue. The wound isn't the problem, pretending it doesn't exist is, because when the wound is driving, your wins will never be enough. The louder your achievements get, the louder your inner emptiness becomes. You'll keep trying to earn what you already deserve. You'll keep chasing love, respect, peace, when all of that has to start from within. So if you want to really level up, If you want to truly shock the world with your evolution, you've got to stop letting the wound dry. You've got to get in the driver's seat of your own life. That means therapy. That means honesty. That means confronting what you buried and giving yourself permission to heal from it. Because once the wound stops leading, your purpose finally starts speaking. And when purpose speaks, that's when your work becomes more than just survival. That's when your grind stops being desperate and starts being divine. That's when your movement stops being a distraction and starts being your mission. That's when you finally work from clarity, from wholeness, from freedom, not from fear. They keep telling you you're lazy. They keep telling you you don't want it bad enough. They say you lack discipline. But let me be real with you, it's not laziness, it's not weakness, it's weight. You're carrying so much that no one sees. You're waking up every day with emotional bags on your back, and somehow you're still pushing forward. That's not laziness, that's survival, and if nobody told you this before, let me say it loud. You're not falling behind because you're not working, you're falling behind because you're working through wounds no one ever helped you heal. You don't have a motivation problem, you've got a healing problem. You've got fatigue that sleep doesn't fix. You've got doubts louder than your goals. You've got years of trauma bottled up inside, and you're trying to grind your way past it like that's gonna erase it. But you can't outwork pain that was never processed. You can't outrun what's living inside you. The truth is, the thing slowing you down isn't laziness, it's emotional weight you've never been given permission to put down. People see the outside. They see you resting and think you're slacking. They see you quiet and think you're disinterested. But what they don't see is the war you're fighting internally. They don't see that it took everything in you just to get out of bed today. They don't see how much energy it costs just to show up, not because you're weak, but because you're carrying guilt, shame, anxiety, depression, generational pressure, rejection, abandonment, and no one ever taught you how to release it. You're carrying the silence of things you never got to say. You're carrying the shame of things that were never your fault. You're carrying the expectations of people who never cared about your healing. You're carrying grief from losses you never got to mourn properly. You're not behind because you're lazy. You're behind because you've been walking through fire every day and acting like you're not burning. This is why you procrastinate, not because you're lazy, but because starting something new when you're emotionally worn out feels overwhelming. This is why you lose focus, not because you're uncommitted, but because your mind is cluttered with emotional noise. This is why you quit halfway, not because you lack vision, but because you're out here trying to run sprints with weights chained to your ankles. You're fighting for your future while dragging the pain of your past. That's not laziness. That's endurance most people don't even recognize. Let's get something straight. Healing is part of success. Taking care of your mind is part of your mission. You can't build the next level of you if the foundation underneath is still cracked. I know they told you to grind harder. I know they told you to keep pushing, to never stop, to be a machine. But you're not a machine, you're human. And what makes you powerful isn't how much you can suppress, it's how much you're willing to confront, to feel, to let go of. Your healing matters. It's not some luxury for people who have time. It's not some optional self-care ritual. It's the difference between burnout and breakthrough. Because until you stop and deal with what's weighing you down, you're going to keep wondering why you never feel light, why success feels like a burden, why even when things go right, you still feel wrong. It's because you've mistaken exhaustion for failure. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you gave yourself permission to rest, not just sleep, but rest? When was the last time you gave yourself space to breathe without guilt? When was the last time you looked at your life and said, this pain I'm carrying, this fear I keep hiding, this sadness I pretend I don't feel, it's time to face it? Because that's where your freedom begins. Not in the hustle, not in the noise, in the quiet, in the pause, in the courage to sit with your broken pieces without shame. And don't confuse healing with weakness. It takes strength to stop running and face the truth. It takes strength to admit you're tired. It takes strength to say, I need help. It takes strength to look in the mirror and acknowledge that you've been trying to be everything for everybody while feeling like nothing inside. That's not failure. That's fatigue from fighting battles no one can see. That's courage under pressure. That's you surviving what would have crushed most people. So if you feel stuck, if you feel inconsistent, if you feel like you're constantly sabotaging your own progress, don't just push harder. Pause, reflect, heal, because the version of you that's going to rise in 2025 isn't just stronger, it's lighter. It's the version that let go of the weight. It's the version that stopped performing strength and started practicing honesty. It's the version that realized the only way to grow is to grieve what broke you first. That version isn't powered by pressure, it's powered by peace. That version doesn't grind from trauma, it grows from truth. That version doesn't fear the silence anymore, it heals in it. You out here asking for clarity. You're crying out to God saying, what's my purpose? What's my assignment? What's my next move? You're journaling, meditating, watching all the podcasts, going to all the seminars, but it still feels like fog. Still feels like you're in the dark. And let me tell you something that nobody probably told you. Clarity doesn't come before healing. Clarity is the reward of healing. You keep trying to get vision without doing surgery on your soul. You want God to drop the plan in your lap, but you're holding on to pain that's blocking your ears. You want the GPS to show up on your screen, but your heart's too cluttered to even see the route. You're praying for direction, but you're still dragging dysfunction. And dysfunction will always distort direction. That's why everything feels blurry, because you haven't removed the trauma lens yet. You're looking at your future through a past that hasn't been processed. You keep asking, why am I stuck? You're stuck because healing is the key that unlocks the next door. You're stuck because you're trying to walk into a new season with old wounds still bleeding. You think you're waiting on a sign, but the truth is, life is waiting on you to stop ignoring the signs inside of you. You don't need more strategy, you need recovery. You don't need a map, you need restoration. You've been so busy trying to figure it out, trying to fix everything, trying to control the outcome, but your soul is screaming for a timeout, a moment to just breathe and admit, I'm still hurt, I'm still angry, I'm still grieving what I never said goodbye to. Because here's the truth, unhealed hurt will speak for you when you think you're making decisions. It will whisper lies in the voice of logic. It will sabotage opportunities in the name of self-protection. And then it'll convince you that confusion is your normal, that the fog is part of the grind. It's not. You don't lack talent. You don't lack potential. What you lack is internal clarity, the kind that only comes when you give yourself space to sit in the mess and start cleaning it out. The clarity you're looking for is not in more doing, it's in deeper undoing. Undoing the lies you believed about yourself. Undoing the shame that keeps telling you you're not ready. Undoing the pressure to perform and the fear of being seen. Because when you start healing, the noise dies down. And when the noise dies down, you start hearing what you were born to do. You keep trying to hear your calling through chaos. You keep trying to map your purpose through pain. But purpose doesn't speak loud, it speaks clear. And clarity can't live in a heart that's still being bullied by brokenness. That's why some of you feel like you're in a holding pattern, not because God is punishing you, but because God is trying to prepare you. He knows that if he gave you the full vision right now, you'd ruin it, you'd run from it, or you'd try to hustle your way through it with unhealed motives. And let's be real, a lot of the things you're calling goals are actually just ways to cope. You're not trying to build a legacy, you're trying to numb the pain. You're not trying to elevate, you're trying to escape. You're setting goals from fear, not faith, from desperation, not destiny. And that's why nothing is sticking. That's why even your success feels shaky, because it's built on a version of you that doesn't know who they really are. So you keep asking, what's my next move? Here it is, heal. Heal the version of you that never got the closure. Heal the part of you that never felt safe. Heal the identity that was shaped by rejection, because once you heal, you stop asking people to define you. Once you heal, you stop searching for external permission to be who you already are. Once you heal, you don't need clarity from the outside because it starts rising from within. Healing is where your vision becomes clean. Healing is where the fog lifts. Healing is where the noise goes silent and you hear your own voice again, the real one, not the wounded one, not the hustling one, not the performing one, but the voice of power. The voice of peace, the voice that says, I know who I am now. Because when you're healed, you don't chase clarity, you carry it. You walk into rooms different. You make decisions different. You set goals different. You don't panic under pressure because you're not building from pain anymore. You're building from presence. You can't microwave this. You can't shortcut this. You can't skip this part because it's uncomfortable. But if you commit to the process, the ugly, quiet, unseen process, what's on the other side is more than clarity. It's alignment. It's the kind of peace that produces power, the kind of power that doesn't scream, it just moves. It doesn't beg to be seen, it commands respect. It doesn't fear storms because it remembers what it took to rebuild from the wreckage. Everybody wants to go up. Everybody wants the spotlight. Everybody wants the platform. But let me be real with you, you will never elevate beyond the level of truth you're willing to face. And some of y'all are running from mirrors. You're grinding, you're hustling, but you're avoiding the one conversation that changes everything, the one with yourself. You want transformation, but you won't do confrontation, and that's why you're stuck. That's why you keep repeating cycles. That's why every level feels the same, because you're dressing up dysfunction and calling it ambition. You can't build the new you while hiding the old you. You can't walk into 2025 a different person if you're still defending who hurt you in 2015. You can't elevate if you refuse to evaluate. See, the mirror doesn't lie, it shows you what's real. But instead of facing it, you scroll past it. Instead of dealing with it, you distract yourself. You work harder hoping the pain gets quieter. You level up on the outside while the inside is falling apart. You clean the stage but leave the soul untouched. And let me tell you something, success doesn't heal brokenness. If anything, it exposes it. It magnifies whatever you buried. You think more money will fix it. You think more followers will silence it. No, it all gets louder. And if you never dealt with the rejection when you were broke, it'll still control you when you're rich. If you never faced the insecurity when nobody knew your name, it'll haunt you when everybody's watching. So you can't outrun the mirror. You can't skip the inner work. That's why it's not clicking. That's why your confidence feels fake. That's why you keep needing approval from people who don't even know you. Because you don't trust your reflection. You see the version of you that's smiling for the world, but you know deep down you haven't faced the truth yet. You haven't forgiven yet. You haven't owned your mistakes yet. You haven't dealt with what's underneath the performance. Listen to me, the most dangerous lies are the ones you tell yourself. I'm fine. I've moved on. It doesn't bother me. You say those things so much that you start believing them. But then your habits start telling a different story. Your procrastination exposes your fear. Your overcommitment reveals your emptiness. Your silence shows your shame. That's the power of the mirror. It don't care what mask you wear. It cuts straight to the core. This is why some of you feel like frauds, even when you're doing great things, because you know the you behind the scenes doesn't match the one on the stage, and that gap, that disconnect, it'll drain you. It'll exhaust you. It'll steal the joy from your progress, because you're not living authentically. You're living on autopilot. You're playing a role, not stepping into your true self. So what's the move? You've got to get honest, brutally honest. You've got to stop praying for elevation and start preparing for exposure. You've got to look in the mirror and say, this is where I'm broken. This is where I've been faking it. This is what I'm still grieving. That kind of honesty. It's not weakness, it's war. That's the battlefield most people avoid. But that's where the shift happens. That's where God meets you. That's where growth begins. Because when you face the mirror, you stop living reactive. You stop letting your past control your present. You stop needing applause to feel valuable. You stop building walls and start building truth. And with truth comes power. With truth comes alignment. With truth comes the kind of clarity that no platform can give you, the kind that lives in your chest, that wakes you up with purpose, that walks into rooms without explanation. And hear me, this ain't a one-time thing. This is daily. This is choosing to confront, not coast. This is choosing growth over comfort. This is deciding that who you're becoming matters more than who you've been pretending to be. You can't elevate casually. You can't transform conveniently. You've got to be intentional. You've got to be willing to bleed now so you can breathe later. The mirror will hurt before it heals. It will reveal before it restores. It will shake you before it settles you. But once you walk through it, once you stop running and start reflecting, you will discover strength you didn't know was in you. You will recover pieces of yourself you thought were lost forever. You will start making decisions from your healed identity, not your hidden wounds. You can't keep saying new year, new me, without doing new work. The old you can't carry the weight of the new vision. The unhealed you can't hold the blessing you're asking for. The version of you that avoids mirrors won't make it to the version of you that shocks the world in 2025. You've got to rise, not just on the outside, but in your soul. You've got to stop decorating the prison and start breaking out of it. Because the mirror isn't your enemy, it's your gateway to the life you were born for. You think you're strong because you made it through. You think you're tough because you didn't quit. You wear your scars like armor, and I get it. You had to be strong when it was falling apart. You had to show up when you were barely holding on. But let me break something down. Just because you survived it doesn't mean you healed from it. And surviving and healing are two different languages. One is defense, the other is deliverance. See, survival is about making it to tomorrow. Healing is about being free when you get there. And some of you, you're alive, but you're not living. You're functioning, but not fulfilled. You're making moves, but they're just muscle memory. You've learned how to cope so well that you confuse coping with conquering. But let's tell the truth. Being numb isn't the same as being healed. Being distracted isn't the same as being whole. You're grinding, yes, but are you growing? You're achieving, sure, but are you aligning? Because survival will make you hyper, independent, where you don't need nobody, trust nobody, let nobody in, and you'll call it strength. But that's not strength, that's scar tissue. That's pain that never got processed, and now every relationship, every opportunity, every dream has to get filtered through the fear that comes from never healing. And the reason some of you keep burning out isn't because you're lazy, it's because you're tired of pretending you're okay. You're tired of carrying the weight of expectations that don't match your internal truth. You're tired of being the strong one, and I came to tell you it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to admit that what you called strength was actually survival mode. You were just doing what you had to do. But now it's time to do what you were born to do. And to do that, you've got to stop living on emergency energy. Because survival isn't supposed to be a lifestyle. It's a bridge, not a destination. But some of you have built houses on survival soil. You made a home in the trauma. You built a mindset around never needing anyone. You built a schedule so packed you'd never have to feel. You turned your heart into a business, your emotions into transactions. You made yourself a machine, and you thought that was strength. But let me tell you something. The strongest version of you is the most healed version of you. Not the one that hides. Not the one that hustles 24/7. Not the one that avoids silence, but the one who has faced the dark, walked through the fire, and came out free. Because when you're healed, you don't perform for love, you give it. When you're healed, you don't chase validation, you walk in truth. When you're healed, you don't fight for worth, you embody it. Some of you are asking, why do I keep ending up in the same places? Because the wounded version of you is the one still calling the shots. The 17-year-old that got abandoned, the 8-year-old that never heard I'm proud of you, the 23-year-old that got cheated on, left embarrassed. That version is still driving your life, and you're calling it protection. But it's not protection, it's prison. You've been so good at surviving that healing feels unsafe. Peace feels foreign. Rest feels irresponsible. Joy feels suspicious. And every time life offers you something different, you sabotage it not because you don't want better, but because you don't recognize it. Because your nervous system has been trained to only respond to pressure, pain, and problems. But there's more. There's a version of you that doesn't flinch at love, that doesn't panic when it's quiet, that doesn't feel guilty for being soft. But you won't meet that version until you start healing. Until you admit that being strong doesn't mean being silent, that being tough doesn't mean never feeling, that being independent doesn't mean being isolated. You have to let go of survival as your identity. Because the next level is not about how long you can grind, it's about how deep you can grow. How deeply can you be well? How deeply can you be whole? How deeply can you be true? You're not failing, you're just being called higher. You're being invited to step out of the storm you lived in for so long you forgot what calm feels like. You're being asked to break the pattern, to let go of the performance, to stop faking strong and start choosing healed. Because when you heal, everything changes. You don't need applause to feel worthy. You don't need pain to feel purposeful. You don't need chaos to feel alive. You stop building walls and start building bridges. You stop playing defense and start designing destiny. You stop reacting to life and start responding with clarity, presence, and power. That's the real strength. That's the strength that doesn't exhaust you, it expands you. That's the strength that doesn't make you harder, it makes you lighter. And that version of you is not just possible, it's waiting.